Welcome to my channel. Today I am going to teach you the third chapter of history, the American War of Independence. So start. Nationalism. What is nationalism? Nationalism is an idea which came in the 18th century. When the nationalism came? In the 18th century. So I have marked the terms that is important with pencil. Okay. In a very simple term, it can be understood as the members of a nation asserting their national identity that may lead to action that the members of a nation take to achieve or sustain self-determination. So what is self-determination? This is the ability to make decision for oneself. So which was not there in America. So after 18th century, it came to America. Nationalism is a sentiment that is based on the common cultural characteristics of a nation. It is an ideology that brought the people of the country together. So what is this? It is an ideology that brought the people of the country together. What it brought? It brought the country together. People of the country. To whom? The people of the country. So what are they? They are irrespective of their caste, creed, religious belief, tradition. It was one of the determining factors of modern history. After the American and French Revolution in the late 18th century, nationalism spread to Central Europe in the 19th century. Thus, the 19th century has been called the age of nationalism in Europe. By the beginning of the 20th century, nationalism started spreading all over the colonies, land of Asia and Africa too. So, when the nationalism reached to Asia and Africa, it reached on the 20th century. In India too, the spirit of nationalism united all the countrymen. In India, to whom the nationalism spirit united? The spirit united to the countrymen. Against whom? Against the British colonial rule. So, against the British colonial rule. Now, the American War of Independence. The 18th century remained witness to many changes in the world, including the Industrial Revolution that has been discussed in the previous chapter when the revolution was taking place in Britain. So it was taking place in which country? It was taking place in Britain. And what revolution? Industrial Revolution was taking place in Britain in the 18th century. When? 18th century, European settlers in America were organizing a political revolution to end the British colonies' rule over them. So what the Americans were thinking? They were thinking to end the British rule over them and establish an independent and democratic state. Why? To establish an independent and democratic state. This revolution was an important landmark as it was the first movement in history in which people asserted the right to rule themselves. Why? Because in this revolution, the people asserted the right to rule themselves. To whom? Themselves. The revolution was the American Revolution, also known as the American War of Independence. So, what is the another name of American War of Independence is American Revolution or the American War of Independence. British colonies in America. After the discovery of the Americas in the 15th century, when the Americas was discovered, it was discovered in the 15th century. Some European countries such as France, Holland, now it is known by Netherlands, Britain and Spain, decided to establish colonies and settlements in the New World. New World means North, Central and South America, known as such because of the relatively late discovery of European explorer. So, North America, South America, Central America was lately discovered by the Europeans, so it is also known as by the New World. The the majority of by the mid of 18th century, 13 colonies were established. So when the 13 colonies was established, it was established in the mid 18th century. How many colonies? 13 colonies, and most of them were of whom? Most of them were of Britain. Each colony had its assembly consisting of elected representatives, which made its own laws and levied taxes. As these were British colonies, the British government appointed governor in each of these colonies. So it was British colonies. These colonies were made of British. So the red one are the 13 colonies, and out of them the most was made by Britain. So they made taxes on each colonies, and they also settled governors in each of the colonies. The governor's main task was to promote British interest instead of protecting the interest of the colonists. Further, the British government enforced high taxes and many restrictions on free business and commerce. These measures hindered the economic development of the colonies. This led to increasing resentment among the colony. Gradually, opposition to the British government's right to enact laws and tax the colonies without their representation in the British Parliament began to emerge and grow. So now we'll learn the causes of the American Revolution. First causes is the economic exploitation. By the mid of 18th century, 13 colonies developed into prosperous agriculture settlements, mainly the one in the south. The north colonies and set up industries and continued flourishing overseas trade. To control the overseas trade, the British government passed certain laws which were beneficial to Britain but exploit the country's economy. Second reason, restriction of expansion of colonies. The British colonies were on the eastern coast of America. So British colony was eastern coast of America. It was on eastern coast. The western part was not under British territory. So the west part was not under British territory, this part. So that's why the Britishers want that to take the west part, but the King George III doesn't want this. Next one, imposition of new taxes. The main reason the colony started against their mother country. What is the mother country of these colonies? Was Britain. Was due to the heavy taxation. Why? Due to the heavy taxation issued by Britain. Why was the taxation was heavy? It was heavy between Britain and France between 1756 to 1763, proved to the expensive for the Britain. So therefore the heavy taxation was done. So at first, due to the taxes, British made. The first act was the Sugar Act, which was introduced to the Americans in the 1764. Next was the Stamp Act in 1765. The third was a number of taxes which imposed in 1767 by the British Parliament through the Revenue Act, the Commissioners of Customs Act, the Indemnity Act, and the Newark Retraining Act. So where is the Newark in the map? Newark is in the east of the map. So next one, influence of the European philosopher and thinker. Who are the European philosopher? Like John Locke, John Milton, Thomas Paine. The American Revolution were influenced by the ideas of the modern European philosopher like John Locke, Thomas Paine, and John Milton, who inspired them to fight against colonial rule to obtain liberty. Thomas Jefferson started that the American people had to right to revolt against them. Who started? Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Paine guided people through this article. American to fight against British rule. So the beginning of the revolution. Tea Act and Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party was that led to the American Revolution. What? The Boston Tea Party. The Tea Act gave the East India Company to monopoly on the tea trade. Only the East India Company was permitted to export tea to the American colonies. So who was permitted? East India Company to export tea act to the American colonies. This led to the open revolt by the colonists on 16 December 1773. So when on December 16, 1773, a group of colonists arrived British ship loaded with tax tea in the Boston harbor and destroyed the tea by throwing the containers into sea. By how they destroyed? They destroyed the tea by throwing the containers into sea. This incident was an open protest against the new taxes. New taxes was including the tax on tea imposed on the colonies. The event became famous as the Boston Tea Party. So how the event became famous? By the name of Boston Tea Party. So in this picture we are getting to see that all tea were thrown by this Americans. The reprisals, the British Parliament passed Intolerance Act which closed the port of Boston. For this one, the port of Boston was closed. Now, the second one we'll learn is the Philadelphia Congress. In 1774, the representatives from the colonies assembled in the Philadelphia in 1774 and prepared a petition that demanded the withdrawal of all taxes levied on the 13 colonies. Since 1765, this is known as the Philadelphia Congress. Now, the second Congress in 1776, Declaration of Independence. The representatives of the 13 colonies met against in July 5th at Philadelphia and adopted the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson, an American philosopher. Who was Thomas Jefferson? An American philosopher. Drafted the declaration which became the Magna Carta of the American Revolution. We can get the picture of Thomas Jefferson. Now, the war broke out between the 13 colonies and Britain in 1775. By whom? 13 colonies and the Britain. The colonies' forces were organized under Commander-in-Chief George Washington. Though the war was between Britain and the 13 colonies, France, Spain, and Netherlands also supported the colonies. To whom the France, Spain, and Netherlands supported? They supported to the 13 colonies, not the Britain. In 1781, the war ended. When the war ended in 1781, with the defeat of the British forces. In 1783, the Treaty of Paris was signed between the British government of the colonists and Britain, recognizing the independence of the 13 colonies. These colonies later on marched to form the United States of America. In 1769, George Washington was unanimously elected as the first president of the United States of America. Who was the first president? George Washington, of whom? United States of America. Birth of United States of America. After Britain recognized the 13 colonies as independent, a constitution was drafted. They declared USA as a republic. The Articles of Confederation was the first document that united the citizens of all countries into one country. It was a beginner. The Federal Constitution was written in 1787 and recognized in 1789. The Bill of Rights was the most important part of the Constitution, which assured fundamental rights. That the impact of the American War of Independence are that this are the impact. Out of this, you must learn any four. It will surely come in exam, and it is very, very important. So definitely, I know that you all will write the short, because it is the nature of the student. They always write in short. So by this, our chapter ended, and surely today I will give you the question answer. Bye.